I was standing in my sister Christine's guest bathroom on Thanksgiving morning when I found the email confirmation in her trash can. The paper was crumpled but readable. It showed a payment of $4,000 to a woman named Tina Brooks for professional matchmaking consultation services. The date was 3 weeks before my disastrous blind date in September. The billing name was mine. My hands started shaking as I smoothed out the paper against the marble counter. I had never hired a matchmaker. I had never heard of Tina Brooks, but someone had used my credit card information to pay for something, and I was starting to understand why my bank statement had shown that mysterious charge I had been disputing for 2 months. The morning had started normally enough. I had arrived at Christine's house in suburbs outside of Denver at 9 in the morning carrying 2 pumpkin pies and a bottle of wine. She had hugged me at the door with that particular smile she always wore when she was about to say something cutting disguised as concern. Her husband Tony was in the kitchen preparing the turkey. Their house always smelled like expensive candles and ambition. I had set my things down in the guest room where I would be staying overnight, and that was when I needed to use the bathroom. That was when I had seen the edge of paper sticking out from under some tissues in the small waste basket beside the toilet. Something had made me pull it out. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way Christine had been acting strange around me for weeks. The paper had my name on it, my credit card number, my email address. But the service description made no sense until I remembered that awful date in September with a man who had seemed to know embarrassingly personal details about my life. Details I had never shared on any dating profile. Details only my family knew. He had mentioned my failed engagement from 3 years ago. He had brought up my career struggles. He had even referenced the miscarriage I had told only Christine and my mother about. At the time I thought maybe we had mutual friends. Now I was staring at proof that someone had paid money to set me up and had shared my private information to do it. I photographed the receipt with my phone. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I put the crumpled paper back exactly as I had found it and walked out of the bathroom trying to keep my face neutral. Tony was whistling in the kitchen. Christine was setting the table in the dining room. Everything looked normal. Everything looked like a holiday. But I could not stop thinking about that receipt and what it meant. Someone had stolen my credit card information. Someone had hired a matchmaker without my knowledge. Someone had shared my deepest secrets with a stranger to set me up on a humiliating date. And that someone had access to my personal information and my trust. I spent the next hour moving through the house like I was underwater. I helped Christine arrange flowers. I chatted with Tony about his promotion at work. I smiled and nodded and felt like I was watching myself from a distance. My mind was racing through possibilities. The credit card I had used for that charge was one I kept in my wallet. I had noticed it missing for a few days in late August, but it had turned up in my car, and I had assumed it had fallen out. Now I was wondering if someone had borrowed it. Someone who knew where I kept my spare car keys. Someone who had been at my apartment around that time. Christine had been at my apartment in late August. She had stopped by unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon when I was at work. She had texted me asking if she could water my plants because she was in the neighborhood and knew I was traveling for a conference. I had told her where the spare key was hidden. She had let herself in. She had been alone in my apartment for at least an hour based on the timestamps of her texts. She could have gone through my wallet. She could have taken photos of my credit card. She could have put it in my car later to make it seem like I had just misplaced it. But why would Christine do that? Why would my own sister steal from me and set me up on a terrible date? I kept circling back to this question as I moved through the morning. We had always been competitive, but this seemed extreme even for our relationship. Then I remembered something she had said in July at our mother's birthday dinner. She had made a comment about how I was always playing the victim in my relationships, how I needed to stop being so picky and just settle down. How my standards were unreasonable and I would end up alone if I did not get realistic about what I could attract. The whole table had gone quiet. Mom had changed the subject, but Christine had looked satisfied with herself, like she had said something that needed to be said. I went back to the guest room and closed the door. I opened my banking app and pulled up the disputed charge from September, $4,000 to TB Consulting Services. I had called my bank immediately when I saw it because I had never authorized the payment. They had opened an investigation. The merchant had provided proof of service in the form of an email consultation confirmation sent to my email address, but I had never received any email. I checked my spam folder. I checked my trash. Nothing. Now I was wondering if someone had accessed my email and deleted the confirmation. Someone who knew my passwords because I had written them down in a notebook I kept in my kitchen drawer. A notebook Christine had definitely seen because she had teased me about it being a security risk. I sat on the edge of the guest bed and tried to steady my breathing. This was not just about money. This was about violation. This was about my sister deliberately humiliating me and stealing from me and invading my privacy. The date in September had been a disaster. The man whose name was Alex had spent 2 hours telling me everything that was wrong with my approach to relationships. He had said he was trying to help me see my patterns. He had called it tough love coaching. He had made me cry in the restaurant bathroom. I had gone home feeling broken and confused. And Christine had called me the next day to ask how it went. She had sounded so sympathetic, so supportive. She had said she hoped I would find someone soon because she worried about me being alone. She had known. She had orchestrated the whole thing, and she had comforted me afterward like she had not been the one to cause my pain. I needed more proof. The receipt was good, but not enough. I needed to understand the full scope of what she had done. I opened my laptop and searched for Tina Brooks Matchmaking Denver. The website was sleek and professional. Services started at $2,000 for basic consultation and went up to $10,000 for comprehensive matching packages. The $4,000 tier included intensive personal history interviews and customized matching with pre-screened candidates. It also included sharing detailed background information with potential matches to facilitate deeper first conversations. That was how Alex had known everything. Christine had told this matchmaker Tina everything about me, and Tina had told Alex. It was all there in the service description. I clicked on the contact page and found a phone number. My hands were shaking again, but I made the call. A woman answered on the second ring, professional voice, warm but businesslike. I told her my name and said I was following up on services I had supposedly purchased. There was a pause. Then she said she remembered my case. She said she had worked with my sister to arrange the consultation because I had been too busy to call myself. She said Christine had explained that I was resistant to help but desperately needed intervention. She said the session with Alex had been meant to provide wake-up call about my relationship patterns. I felt my face get hot. I asked if she had received payment directly from me. She said yes, the credit card on file was in my name. I asked if she had spoken to me personally at any point. Another pause. She said all communication had been through Christine, who had explained she was handling logistics on my behalf. I thanked her and ended the call. My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped the phone. Christine had impersonated me. She had stolen $4,000 from me. She had hired someone to psychologically attack me on a fake date, and she had done it all while pretending to care about my well-being. This was not sibling rivalry. This was cruelty. This was criminal. I heard voices downstairs. More family had arrived. I could hear my mother's laugh and my Uncle Thompson's loud greeting. I was supposed to go down and be part of the celebration. I was supposed to smile and eat turkey and pretend everything was fine. But I could not move. I sat on the bed staring at my phone and feeling the weight of what I had discovered. Part of me wanted to pack my bags and leave. Part of me wanted to confront Christine immediately. Part of me wanted to pretend I had never found that receipt and just get through the day. But I kept thinking about that moment in the restaurant bathroom when I had cried after Alex had finished telling me all the ways I was broken. I had believed him. I had taken his cruel assessment and internalized it. I had spent weeks questioning myself and wondering if I really was as damaged as he had made me sound. And Christine had done that to me on purpose. She had paid money to make me feel small. That was not something I could ignore. That was not something I could let go. If you are invested in what happens next, please hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to me and helps me share more stories like this. Now back to what happened. I washed my face and went downstairs. The house was full now. Mom was in the kitchen with Tony. Uncle Thompson was in the living room watching football. Christine was pouring drinks and laughing with her friend who had been invited to join us. Everyone looked happy. Everyone looked normal. I felt like an alien observing a species I no longer understood. Christine saw me and waved me over. She handed me a glass of wine and said I looked tense. She said I should relax because it was Thanksgiving. She touched my arm in that familiar sisterly way, and I had to force myself not to pull away. Dinner was at 3. We all gathered around the long table in Christine's formal dining room. The turkey was golden. The side dishes were arranged beautifully. Everything looked like a magazine spread. Christine sat at one end and Tony at the other. I was in the middle next to Mom and across from Uncle Thompson. We went around the table sharing what we were grateful for. Mom talked about family. Tony talked about his promotion. Uncle Thompson talked about his health improving after his surgery. When it was Christine's turn, she looked right at me and said she was grateful for sisters and second chances. She said family was everything even when we struggled. She said she hoped we could all support each other better. The whole table murmured agreement. I felt sick. When it was my turn, I said I was grateful for truth. I said I was grateful for clarity. I said I was grateful for knowing who people really were. Mom looked confused. Christine's smile flickered. I took a sip of wine and waited for someone to move on. Uncle Thompson started talking about the football game and the moment passed, but Christine kept glancing at me. She knew something was wrong. She just did not know I had found the receipt. We ate. The food was delicious, but I could barely taste it. I kept watching Christine, the way she laughed, the way she played the perfect hostess, the way she touched Tony's shoulder when she passed his chair. Everything about her suddenly seemed calculated. Everything seemed like performance. I wondered how long she had been this person. I wondered if I had ever really known her at all. We had grown up together. We had shared rooms and secrets and years of life, and she had stolen from me. She had deliberately tried to break me down. That was not something you did to someone you loved. After dinner, Christine suggested we take our dessert into the living room. She brought out the pies I had made and served everyone a slice. She made a joke about me being the better baker. She said it with a smile, but there was an edge to it. There was always an edge with Christine. I had spent years making excuses for it, chalking it up to her competitive nature or her difficult childhood or her high standards. Now I wondered if it was just meanness. Simple, uncomplicated meanness dressed up as concern. Mom settled into the armchair with her pie. Tony and Uncle Thompson were back to watching football. Christine sat next to me on the couch and said quietly that I seemed off. She asked if I was okay. She said I had barely eaten. She touched my hand and I looked down at her fingers on mine and felt nothing but anger. I pulled my hand away. She looked hurt. She asked what was wrong. I said we needed to talk privately. Her expression changed, just for a second. A flash of something that might have been fear. Then the mask came back. She said, of course. She said we could go upstairs. We went to her bedroom. It was decorated in shades of cream and gold. Everything matched. Everything was perfect. She closed the door and turned to face me with her arms crossed. She asked what was going on. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo of the receipt. I watched her face. I watched the color drain from her cheeks. I watched her mouth open and close. She said, "Where did you get that?" I said, "I found it in your bathroom trash." I said, "I called Tina Brooks." I said, "I know what you did." She sat down on the edge of the bed. She put her head in her hands. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she started talking. She said she had done it for my own good. She said I needed a wake-up call. She said I had been wallowing in my victim mentality for years and someone needed to be honest with me. She said she had thought if I heard hard truths from a neutral third party I would finally listen. She said the $4,000 was an investment in my future. She said she had planned to tell me eventually, but wanted to see if it worked first. She said she was sorry I found out this way. I stared at her. I said, "You stole my credit card." She said, "Borrowed." I said, "You impersonated me." She said, "Facilitated." I said, "You shared my private trauma with a stranger who used it to humiliate me." She looked up at me and there were tears in her eyes. She said I was making it sound worse than it was. She said she had been trying to help. She said everything she did came from a place of love. I said, "Love does not steal. Love does not lie. Love does not deliberately cause pain and call it help." She stood up. Her tears were gone. Her face was hard now. She said I was being dramatic. She said I always made everything about me. She said she was tired of watching me sabotage my own life and complain about being alone. She said someone had to do something. I said you had no right. She said I was her sister and that gave her every right to care. I said caring does not look like fraud. She said I should be grateful. She actually said grateful. She said most people would appreciate having someone who cared enough to intervene. I told her I wanted my $4,000 back. She laughed. She said the service had been rendered. She said she could not get a refund. I said, "Then you pay me." She said she did not have $4,000 to just hand over. I said, "Figure it out." She said no, just like that. No. She said I was not getting the money back, and if I tried to make a big deal out of this, she would tell everyone how ungrateful and vindictive I was being. She said Mom would take her side. She said I would be the one who looked crazy. I felt something shift in my chest, a kind of cold clarity. I said I have the receipt, I have the phone records, I have the bank statements showing disputed charges. I have Tina Brooks on record saying you arranged everything without my knowledge. I said that is fraud, Christine. That is identity theft. That is a crime. She said I would not call the police on my own sister. I said, "Watch me." Her face changed again. Fear this time. Real fear. She said we could work this out. She said we did not need to involve anyone else. She said she would pay me back. I asked when. She said she needed time. I asked how much time. She said 6 months. I said 3 months. She said she could not do 3 months. I said then I am going to the police tomorrow. She started crying again. Real tears this time. She said please do not do this. She said it would ruin her. She said Tony did not know. She said Mom would never forgive me. I stood there looking at my sister crying on her perfect bed in her perfect room, and I felt nothing but tired. I said you did this to yourself. I said you stole from me. You violated my privacy. You tried to break me down. And now you want me to protect you from the consequences. She said we were family. I said family does not treat each other like this. She said everyone makes mistakes. I said mistakes are accidents. This was deliberate. This was planned. This was cruel. I told her I wanted a written payment plan. I wanted her to sign an agreement to pay me back $4,000 plus the bank fees I had incurred disputing the charge. That was another $300, total of $4,300 to be paid in 3 monthly installments. If she missed a payment, I would file a police report and a civil suit. She said that was blackmail. I said no, that is consequences. She could take the deal, or I could go downstairs right now and tell everyone what she did. Her choice. She took the deal. We typed up a simple agreement on her laptop. She signed it. I took a photo. I also made her transfer the first payment right then, $1,434. I watched it hit my bank account. She was shaking the whole time. She asked if we were done. I said we were done when I got my last payment. Until then we were nothing. She asked if I was going to tell Mom. I said that depended on whether she kept her word. We went back downstairs. Everyone was still in the living room. Mom asked if everything was okay. Christine said yes, we had just needed to talk through some sister stuff. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. I sat back down and ate my pie. It tasted like victory and ashes. Tony asked if anyone wanted coffee. Thompson was snoring in the recliner. Mom was looking at me with concern. I said I was fine. I said I was just tired. I said it had been a long day. I left the next morning. Christine did not come downstairs to say goodbye. Tony said she was not feeling well. He gave me a hug and said he hoped I had enjoyed Thanksgiving. I said it was memorable. I drove home listening to silence. No music, no podcasts, just the sound of tires on highway and my own breathing. I kept thinking about that receipt, about how finding it had changed everything, about how one piece of paper in a trash can had revealed the truth I had been too trusting to see. Christine made her second payment on time, then her third. The money went back into my account. The bank closed the fraud investigation in my favor. I never told Mom. I never told anyone except my therapist, who said what Christine did was not just wrong, it was abusive. She said family trauma often looks like love until you are far enough away to see it clearly. I thought about that a lot in the months that followed. Christine and I do not talk now. She texted me once in January asking if we could move past this. I did not respond. She sent a card for my birthday in March. I threw it away without opening it. Mom asked why we were not speaking. I said Christine knew why. Mom said family was important. I said so was self-respect. Mom stopped asking. I think about that Thanksgiving sometimes. About standing in the bathroom holding that crumpled receipt. About the moment I decided to investigate instead of ignore. About how much courage it took to confront Christine and how good it felt to stand up for myself even though my hands were shaking. I think about all the times before when she had been cruel and I had made excuses. All the times I had let things go because she was my sister and that was supposed to mean something. It does mean something. It means I deserved better. It means I should have been protected, not targeted. It means the people who claim to love you should not steal from you and lie to you and try to convince you it was for your own good. I learned that lesson at 37. I wish I had learned it sooner, but I learned it, and that is worth something too. The $4,300 is back in my account. Christine kept her word about the payments even if she broke every other promise sisters are supposed to keep. I used the money to pay for actual therapy with a licensed professional who helps me work through relationship patterns without shaming me for having them. I am doing better. I am setting boundaries. I am learning to trust my instincts, especially when something feels wrong. That instinct made me pull the receipt from the trash. That instinct told me to investigate. That instinct saved me from continuing to believe I was the problem when really I was just surrounded by someone who wanted me to think I was broken so she could feel superior. That is what I learned. That is what I carry with me now. Not everyone who claims to help you has your best interests at heart. Not everyone who says they love you knows what love actually means. I spent years thinking Christine was hard on me because she cared. Now I know she was hard on me because she needed someone to feel better than. That is not love. That is not family. That is just cruelty wearing a familiar face. And I do not have to accept it anymore. I do not have to make excuses or minimize or pretend it was not that bad. It was that bad. It was fraud and theft and emotional abuse disguised as tough love. And I survived it. I confronted it. I got my money back. I got my dignity back. I got myself back. And that is the ending I needed, even if it is not the ending anyone wanted. Some stories do not wrap up neatly with forgiveness and reconciliation. Some stories end with distance and boundaries and the hard-won knowledge that you deserve better than what you were given. This is one of those stories, and I am okay with that.